I've been working to upgrade my collection with the best sounding pressings that I can find based on tons of research for my favorite records in my collection. And that's what the Crown Jewels series is all about. I'm going to be doing today episode number 9 in that ongoing series. Just as a refresher, I'm doing 50 videos during this year highlighting what I feel are the 50 best sounding records in my collection. Today, I want to talk about an important record for me. Back in middle school and high school, this is kind of the first record that put the band Rush on my radar. I remember hearing Spirit of the Radio and Free Will, and eventually, I think buying a cassette of that record, in the early 1980s. And the record I'm talking about, have I even mentioned it yet? Permanent Waves, released in January of 1980. This is a tremendous record. It's an important record in the Rush discography. I think it's a transitional kind of a bridge album between the record that came before this, which was Hemispheres, and then the record that would come after this, only a year later, really, Moving Pictures in 1981. With this record, we see the band still straddling kind of both sides of their existence. The two things that they're best known for, they were best known for being a power trio with heavy prog influences, not just prog, but, late 1960s, The Who, Cream, of course. But they really leaned into prog. And Hemispheres might be the last big gasp for Rush as far as their progginess was concerned. However, on this record, they were moving, and I think Neil Peart said it in an interview, this wasn't a conscious decision. But if you look at the track listing and the track times, several of these amazing songs were more concise. They had a tighter arrangement. They were clocking in at, let's say, less than 8 or 9 minutes long, right? Now, there was an outlier on this record that still kind of harkened back to those proggy roots. That, of course, was the incredible 9 minute long Natural Science track. Natural Science, of course, was the ending song, and it was a three-part trilogy song that was ending side two. Those three subsections of that song were titled Tide Pools, Hyperspace, and Permanent Waves. And famously, during that song, they recorded, a stream that was outside of the studio that they decided finally to record this album. They had gone to London to Trident Studios. That was their initial choice in which they wanted to record the album. Ultimately, they made a decision. The costs were going to be too high. Maybe a little bit of a stressor being in, central London. They decided to retreat back to Montreal, and they found this studio called Le Studio in the hills outside of Montreal in Quebec. And anyway, back to Natural Science. There was a stream, and there was a bucolic lake that the studio overlooked. But they got some trickling water sounds in parts of Natural Science, which is amazing. And that brings up another point on Permanent Waves. Speaking of upgrades, it's important that you find an extra clean copy of this record. You can go out and buy the I think it's a DMM cut, the current kind of remastered reissue that is out there and available. Having read the Steve Hoffman forums and listening to people like Patrick PB Thal, there is kind of a consensus out there. You know, more people think in one direction than the other direction. The consensus is that the original pressings are best. They have more life. They have more energy. They have more space, more air. And I can tell you that I started out with a U.S. master disc pressing. The lacquers were cut by Howie Weinberg. So you'll find a master disc in HW in the dead wax. Ultimately, I moved on from that pressing because I kept hearing about the Ray's cut. Who the hell is Ray? Well, Ray was Ray's staff, and he was one of the main cutting engineers, mastering engineers at Trident Studios in the UK. And they would eventually, after recording the record, they would send the tapes back over to London, back to Trident, where it was mixed and then ultimately mastered by Ray's staff. And if you have the Canadian Anthem first pressing, you will find both Trident UK in the dead wax, as well as Ray's for Ray's staff on the opposite side in the dead wax. That record was on the Anthem label. Here is a look at it. And I went out and found a near mint example of this, and let me just say, this is a breathtaking listen. Everything, the soundstage is really, really nice. There is really incredible definition of instruments here, but not too detailed whereby it might become a fatiguing listen. The musicality of this pressing, it just breathes life, and it is incredibly pleasing to the ear. This is the best pressing yet that I've heard of Permanent Waves. Now, I also have a US pressing, and of course that was on the Mercury label. And this one also has Ray's in the dead wax. I actually think it says Ray's cut. I'm going to show a photo of that in a moment. Keep watching. As if you have a choice, right? You have a choice, obviously. So that's pretty cool. The US pressing, the Mercury pressing, uses those plates that were mastered at Trident in London by Ray staff. And you know that by seeing Ray's cut in the dead wax. Great sounding pressing as well. Between the Canadian and the US, I'm going to give an edge to the Canadian. You know, I did a video on these pressings maybe 6 months ago. And after putting my Canadian through my Humming Guru a couple more times, my vinyl, that Canadian Anthem pressing is dead silent. And it's just, like I said earlier, it's a breathtaking listen. Hey everybody, this is Tim. As you probably know, I'm going to try and make this short for like a 30-second commercial for my new merch that I have in my own merch store. First of all, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps greatly with the algorithm. And if you are a super fan, I have some very cool stuff, including my OG University of Vinyl Seal t-shirt, high quality, very comfortable. This is 4 ounce, 100% cotton. I also have my brand new Babylon Sisters t-shirt. Check out the design cues for this shirt in the link in the bio. This is on Comfort Colors, and it's a heavier 100% cotton shirt, true to size, very comfortable, very relaxed fit. Last but not least, everybody, I have my own University of Vinyl pennant, and you too can become a valedictorian. Check these out in the merch shop, link in the bio. Thanks, everybody. You know, the second song on side one, which is Free Will, there is a breakout section of that song near the end, and Geddy Lee's bass is really nice and defined and tight. Uh, the recorded drums from Peart are amazing. Vocals are really nice and present in the mix, and Lifeson, of course, is fantastic. Also, it's interesting. This record, a little more use of synths, a little more use of Moog as well, and that would be even more accentuated on the next record that would come, which of course is Moving Pictures. But yeah, back to the kind of the direction that they were headed. Just looking at the where these tracks clock in at. Spirit of Radio, which is actually a hit for Rush as far as hits go for Rush. 4 minutes and 54 seconds. Free Will, just over 5 minutes. Jacob's Ladder, another important song that you really want to have dead silent vinyl for. Entre Nous is under 5 minutes long. This is side two. Different strings, clocking in at 3 minutes and 50 seconds. And then the Outlier, of course, like I mentioned earlier, closing out side two, 9 minutes, 27 seconds, is that three-part incredible track, Natural Science. You will notice that on the newspaper, you do have Dewey defeats Truman there. And you'll notice that on the American pressing, on that Mercury pressing, that's been whited out. They had to remove that in later pressings. But incredible artwork. And the actual designer of this album title, I picked this up on Wikipedia that I wasn't aware of. The guy right there waving by the sign was the art director for putting this whole cover together. His name escapes me right now. The most important thing is the music on this record. Again, in my opinion, a transitional record for Rush, but something kind of unique in their discography because they were still straddling the prog universe and then moving into more of a concise, structured, radio-friendly format that you would definitely see with Moving Pictures. There are some breathtaking songs in this record. It is one of the best-sounding records in my collection. You know, I stumbled on a list from Rick Beato. I was looking on the internet as we do, and I stumbled across this list of what Rick Beato thinks are the best sounding recordings out there, and there's a list of about 30 or 40 records, and right in that group is Permanent Waves from Rush. So don't know what you feel about Rick Beato. I'm a big fan. I love his videos. But good to know that he included Permanent Waves in that list. This has been episode 9 of The Crown Jewels. Thanks for watching, everybody. Be back soon.